Chapter 20. Cain's Curse and Fight. And behold, from all sides black clouds gathered above the head of Cain, and heavy lightning flashed in all directions, accompanied by loud thunder. And hurricanes began to rage from all sides, hurling great masses of hail upon the fruit-laden fields, totally destroying them. This was the first hail, which was thrown from the heavens, and the hail was a sign of love without mercy, as the deity within it had once more been offended by Cain's crime against his brother Abel. And the wicked Cain fled into his hut and found his wife trembling on the ground, and beside her several of his mostly unblessed children lying like dead. And Cain shuddered, cursed the serpent, left the hut, and found the stone the fleeing serpent had put in front of his door. He slipped on the stone and fell heavily to the ground, and once more cursed the malice of the serpent and the deadly stone. When he had risen again, his body sore, he went to the bank of the nearby stream to look for the cursed serpent and to destroy it. Arrived at the river, he saw a horrible monster swim towards him. It was 666 yards long and 7 yards wide, had 10 heads, and from each head grew 10 horns, similar to a crown. When this immense serpent had come quite close to him, it spoke from all its heads simultaneously, saying, "Well, you strong Cain, murderer of your brother, if you feel a match for me, you may start with your work of destruction. Once when I was still weak in the grass, you were able to tear me to pieces and consume my flesh and blood. But now this would hardly be possible to you, for the good food you have prepared for me from the blood of your brother has made me big and strong. If you are still willing to destroy me, you may begin to feed your vengeance with my blood. But since you have only 10 fingers and not 10 hands, and are thus unable to seize all the heads simultaneously, the other 8 will bruise you with their horns and consume you with their 8 jaws." Cain was terrified, fled from the sight of the serpent, and cursed it again, realizing how mightily the serpent had deceived him. And he thought, "Now that my brother Abel is no more, who will now reconcile me with the forever just God? Oh, you 3 times cursed serpent, you were my brother's murderer, and now wanted to become mine too. Oh, if I knew that you would perish if I perished, 7 times would I revenge his death on myself." And behold, the serpent was standing behind him, in the form of an extremely charming young girl, and spoke to him, "Do that, Cain, and I shall consume your flesh and drink your blood, whereupon we shall again be completely one, and rule all the world." And Cain gazed at the pretty girl and said, "Yes, this is your true form in which you are most terrible. Whoever will see you with your 10 heads will flee you like a judgment of the deity. But he to whom you will come in this form will run after you, catch you, and love you more than God. He will be the happiest man when you will seize him with your at all times deadly hands, and the people will erect you temples and altars, and will lick your spittle and eat your dirt. Had I not seen you with the 10 heads, I too would have become your slave. But now I know you well and detest you in this form, even more than in the former 10-headed one. Said the beautiful girl, "But Cain, how can you fear these tender limbs of mine, this soft bosom?" "Oh, be silent," said Cain. "Your tender limbs are serpents full of bitter venom, and under your soft bloated bosom you have an impenetrable armour with which and by which your serpent's arms will crush my poor and weak face. For, shaped like this, you will even make the giant Leviathan becomes your most obedient servant." And behold, the serpent woman became inflamed by her inner fury, and her whole being shone like the sun. And taking on the form of Abel, she spoke again to Cain in the friendliest manner. "Cain, you blind fool, my bad brother, behold, the one whom you have slain with a stone is now standing before you, transfigured, and offers you his hand to make peace with him. Do not fear the form of the serpent, which is actually you yourself. Who became unfaithful to the Lord? Was it you or the serpent? Did you or the serpent sleep with your wife like the dogs, without the demanded offering beforehand? Was it you or the serpent that cursed the heat, and in his indolence offered empty straw to the Lord? Tell me, was it the serpent or was it you who flew into a rage against his brother in his wicked jealousy? And was not the serpent just an outward manifestation of your own wickedness through which you persuaded yourself, in your great delusion, to kill your brother? Why do you now curse the serpent which is, in fact, you yourself? And how can you take your own brother to be the personified serpent? And did not your own brother, when he was still in his physical body, and you went to lead him to his death, pretending in your great villainy that you wanted him to free you from the serpent, ask you whether you thought that he too was a fratricide? Say, is this not so? And if it is otherwise, then you may curse the serpent, but do not take me, who came from above as a transfigured brother to help you, for the serpent, but only yourself. Give me your hand, which is still soiled with the blood of your brother, that it may be cleansed by my brotherly love from its great guilt, and you once more might find mercy before the eyes of the Lord." And lo, in his blindness Cain was deceived by Satan, and was on the point of offering the seducer his hand. But a mighty flash of lightning descended from the sky, and struck between the liar and Cain, and the would-be Abel was lying on the ground as a serpent. Cain was trembling all over, expecting the inevitable judgment from above. Then Jehovah spoke from the clouds. "Cain, where is your brother Abel? What have you done to him?" Seeing the serpent lying on the ground, Cain soon took courage and said, "Why do you ask me? Am I my brother's keeper?" And Jehovah's voice spoke more forcibly. "The blood of your brother, with which you have soaked the earth, is crying to me. I have seen your deed. Where is Abel, your brother?" And Cain said, "Lord, my sin is so great that it cannot ever be forgiven." "Yes," said Jehovah. "Therefore be cursed on the earth, which has swallowed Abel's blood. And when in future you till the soil, it will no longer yield you bread. You shall wander about, a fugitive, without a roof over your head, like a wild animal, and you shall live on thorns and thistles." Hearing this, Cain was mightily alarmed and said with a shaking voice, "Lord, you forever just one, behold, you are driving me today from this land, and I must flee from your countenance and be a fugitive on earth. And it will come to pass that whoever finds me will slay me. Therefore be merciful for the sake of my family." And behold, Jehovah spake, "No, nobody shall slay Cain, and he who would do that shall be slain sevenfold. In order that no one lays violent hands upon you, I will mark your forehead with a black stain, and no one shall ever know nor slay you." And Cain fled with his family from my sight far beyond Eden, to the lowland of Nod. Eden was a beautiful land of small hills, with an abundance of the best fruit, and Cain liked it very much and wanted to settle there. However, looking towards the hills, he noticed everywhere a man of a forbidding appearance, standing with a stone in his hand, as if he were waiting for Cain in order to revenge his evil deed. This apparition was a sign of the great fear in his heart, and he knew that he could not remain here. So he fled on, towards the east, and came to a large valley. There he fell to the ground completely exhausted, and slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Then a mighty wind blew down from the mountains, roused the sleepers, soughed and roared over the vast plains, and finally died down in the valleys of the land called Nod, or dry bottom of the sea. Again Cain looked up to the high mountain peaks, and here he no longer saw any men, but he did not know what to do. After a short while he raised his arms and shouted at the top of his voice, "Lord, you most just one, if from this great distance my voice still reaches your ear, for the sake of the children and my wife, look graciously across these mountain peaks at the marked fugitive from the eyes of your holiness, which has marked my forehead with the night of sin, and let me have an unmarked forehead, so that my evil deed may not be recognized, which is marked on the forehead, the hands, and the chest of the great sinner whose sin is too great that it could ever be forgiven." And behold, a cloud came across the tall mountains, at 77 heights of man above the fugitive, and a powerful voice spoke from it. It was the voice of Abel, and he said, "Cain, do you know this voice?" And Cain answered, "O brother Abel, if you have come to take petty vengeance on me, your murderer, then do to me according to justice, but spare your blessed sister and her children." Then the voice spoke again, saying, "Cain, he who commits a crime is a sinner, but he who repays evil with evil is a servant of sin. The one who rewards good with good has paid his debt, but there is nothing left for him. He who rewards a good deed manifold is worthy of his brothers. However, before God only one thing counts, and that is, to return good for evil. Bless those who curse their benefactors, and give one's life for death. And behold, as the latter I come to you. So do not fear me, for I was sent from above, firstly, to show you that the Lord is true and faithful in all his promises, and, secondly, to tell you that you are to remain in this land with your family, and live on the fruit you will find here. And finally, also to let you know that your brother has forgiven you your wicked deed through the great love of the Father within him. For my blood you shall atone with your tears of repentance, until the stain has been washed off your forehead. And you shall guide your children and your wife in the fear of the Lord. If you will do this spontaneously out of fear of the Lord, you will remain and live as an outlaw. But if you do it out of love, you will touch the hardened heart of justice.